Hello, all you fine feathered folk out there, and welcome to another disturbing edition of Disinformed After Dark. I'm Shane.
And I'm Michael.
We're not going to give you too much preamble. If you're not familiar, we are half of the hosts of the very popular Disinformed podcast. And this week, we were talking about some professional wrestling lore and mythology, some of which brought to us by the infamous Jim Cornette. And I'm going to share something that's going to get us copyright stricken, but I do not care. This was something I had planned to share during the episode, but then I wound up not doing so. But I feel like I want to share it with Michael because it just gives you some context as to just how insane this whole situation was back in the day. So, are you ready for a little entertaining storytelling from Jim Cornette?
I'm ready to fair use react to some media. Take that, YouTube.
Look at you. Okay, so here we go. How professional am I? So this is Ox Baker, who you're going to be absolutely just smitten with, I am sure.
Can't handle his eyebrows.
It's great. So here we go. Here's the Ox Baker Cleveland Riot, and it's actually going to show you the footage of the situation as Cornette gives you some commentary on what was happening. So it gives you the historical perspective and why I'm so fascinated by him. One, as a historian, but two, as a personality, but also why the frickin' sport is so ridiculous. So here we go.
Twice in the last 20 years, I've hit people and they died in the ring.
The Ox Baker, I would think actually he may be even more famous than Stasiak because of the deaths. Could you imagine sitting in an arena, let's say in Cleveland, and seeing him against Tex McKenzie in a
So it's important to give a little context here for you. So Ox Baker's finishing move, that what he would hit people with to end matches, was called the heart punch. So he would actually just straight up punch somebody in the chest, and that was the whole thing. So it was intended to show like he was stopping someone's heart. Well, he actually did have two people die in the ring while he was, wrestling. So it's easy to kind of get some credulity or credibility for this, and that's what they're talking about. So this individual was fighting Ox Baker, got punched, and then had a ruptured appendix and died. So kind of rough.
main event.
And they would still riot. If you look at the Riot film, folks, Google, okay, we have so many new listeners, Ox Baker,
This is Jim Cornette speaking.
Riot on YouTube.
Maybe Ernie Ladd Riot. Maybe.
Ernie Ladd, Cleveland Riot. But the fucking heart punches that Ox was hitting Ernie with upon, close inspection, but Ernie is down, he's bleeding already.
So I'll explain. Ox Baker's the one who's standing up in the ring. Ernie Ladd is a very famed wrestling icon, was 6'7", former football player. Like you'll notice when he stands up, he's a big guy. So these are two very sizable athletes. So this is a match where the two individuals were involved, and Ox Baker came in, interfered, and started attacking Ernie Ladd while he was already hurt. So this is why the crowd gets upset.
Every time Ox hits him, he quivers, he's selling it, he's quivering.
So here's the heart punch.
And there's Johnny Powers there looking out for people already. And as a matter of fact, I'd asked Ernie, one of the first things when I met him, I asked him about that. I said, please tell me what you can tell me. And the deal was, it wasn't even the finish of a match. It was earlier in the night. This was not even the main event, right? A lot of people think, oh my God, they went crazy in the main event.
And no one died in this one, right?
No.
Okay.
But the crowd riots.
Somebody had a match, and somehow Johnny Powers had turned, right, and joined Ox Baker against Ernie Ladd.
Yes.
And
so it's important to note, so Ernie Ladd, of course, is complicit in this, knows this is happening. And as they're talking, they're going to talk about how the wrestlers are noticing that the crowd is starting to get really agitated. Like it's starting to get to a point, and that's what Cornette's going to start mentioning here, is saying the natives are getting restless, is what they're mentioning, because it's like they're noticing this is going to get out of hand.
Holy fuck, the people were hot, and Ernie said, as he was laying there, he saw it and he felt it. It was going too far. And he looked up and he said, Ox, the natives are getting restless. And Ox said, just a little more heat. Just a little more
So
heat.
these people are already hitting the ring.
Oh, no.
Another hard punch. And Ernie sees the first guy pick up a fucking chair. Ox, the natives are getting restless. Leave with your heat. And Ox said, just a little more heat. Just a little more.
So there's chairs flying in the ring.
no.
He hits him with another hard punch, and that's when the first chair flies over the top rope. And that's when you
These
see
are
Ox
fans
on the
hitting the
tape.
ring.
Oh no. Oh no.
And you see
Like,
people
oh,
going
wait a
around the
minute.
bottom.
And then they're talking to each other, and Ernie's laying there. He's making sure he's not getting any of the fucking.
Yeah, I mean, I would too.
But he's not exposing that he's.
I'm fine, but I'm not getting
So-
hit.
And they're like, I told you the natives were getting restless.
I
So-
told you the natives were getting restless.
Like I delight in
goodness.
how these stories get told, but you can see like, and I had some other stuff that like people throwing chairs, and ECW really popularized this, but I mean like people would just start throwing folding chairs into the ring to the point that everybody had to duck and dive and run out. But that was something because television made that a little more popular. But people actually routinely would riot where they would just tear the building apart if they didn't like how the match went, and the heels make it out of the building. They don't have any other way to respond, so they would start ripping open the box office doors, stealing the money back for the tickets, like setting their chairs on fire. They destroyed whole arenas. They actually had to they put a curfew on Madison Square Garden for places because there were several riots that took place with the WWF product back then. Like, it's insane how violent and vitriolic that people would get with this.
I can see it because I know that's a thing with hockey. It's definitely a thing with hockey.
Yep.
That's also a thing with football, soccer.
Indeed.
So yeah, no, like especially considering that wrestling can be very bloody. I can see that easily turning into a riot.
And it's easy to look at it now, like in the scope of one, knowing what we know, and also looking at the
yeah.
footage and being like, oh, well, you can see he's not really hitting him that hard.
Yeah.
It was like, but if you consider most people are going to be down in seats, they're not seeing it as close up as the camera is, where it's zoomed in and showing you. It's like you're just watching what you would be seeing in a boxing match, right?
Yeah.
So if you're not seeing there's a little air between those punches and it's not necessarily stiff, you think that guy's trying to kill the other person in the ring. Like, this happened routinely where fans would just jump up, pull a knife out, and start trying to go to stabbing the wrestlers. So it's a ridiculous atmosphere, and something that, we've lost today, thankfully, due to better security, but also
better security, and also the general. It's already a consensus that wrestling is fake. You don't watch it for it for the spectacle.
It's predetermined.
Oh, sorry, you're right.
Don't get people upset.
No, it's a good point, because it's never fake. People's injuries are real. It's choreographed. It's determined. There's a lot of you watch it for the spectacle, and yeah, you can cheer for people and stuff like that, but you're watching it for like that raw, like the show of it. And that's what it is.
The thing that Cornette sort of laments for today's product versus when he was in the business is that the idea as a wrestler is you were trying to manipulate the crowd.
Yes.
And so you were doing things not because, I want to, make this giant dive and do all these showy moves or replicate a video game maneuver or things like this for the pop. Sometimes you would do really, what might be considered a boring thing to get the crowd angrier. So just sit there in a headlock and hold the guy and not have a lot of action, because then they're going to get mad.
Yeah.
So that when the action finally gets up and you hear them starting to rumble, you're like, okay, now we go.
Finish it.
So then get up, start moving, make things go a little faster. And the impact became greater because you delayed gratification with it.
Exactly.
So the manipulation of the audience was something that was a good deal more important to them back then than it is now, where you're just doing things to get people to chant or to just do the, break as much furniture as possible. And that's kind of the difference between today's product versus then. So one of the things he misses that he says we've lost these days is that ability to make people want to riot, to hit the ring because they want to beat you up instead.
Yeah.
So fun stuff, but harkens back to the episode. And if you enjoyed hearing Cornette speak there and here, plenty of that available for you, but something that amuses me immensely, obviously, more than the product. I couldn't care less. I don't watch it these days. I just like to hear the stories because it's fascinating.
That's fascinating.
So
that episode was any indication, because that's not just the only story.
Yes.
There's plethora, and that's just talking about Jim Cornette. Like there's a million other people. I bet any single one, like even more modern contemporary people, The Rock, John Cena, but then you go back to like Hulk Hogan, and like any of those, even
It's like, have we almost exhausted your name 5?
No, Andre the Giant.
Okay, we're down to 4. Give me one more.
Good. Oh, well, you got the Undertaker. You got,
Okay, all right. Thank you. You redeemed yourself.
Austin. I'm gonna hemorrhage brain.
Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Steve Austin. Yes. Yeah.
Which
yeah.
I think you already mentioned, but that's fine.
Did I? Oh goodness. But
well, you said The Rock and John Cena. I think we might have flown by it. So
yeah. And I don't think I mentioned him, but I mean, like a lot of the stuff even that they did during Steve Austin's heyday, taking the 2 beers, shaking him, pouring him over himself and stuff like that. Like that was a spectacle. That was to hype up the crowd. And I like that was because I do very, very faintly remember watching some wrestling stuff when I was younger, because like I said in the episode, my mom was a big fan. For whatever reason, she watched it. She enjoyed watching it. And so she would watch it when I was younger. And so I got to see a lot of it. Yeah,
it really is. It's melodrama, but it just involves, more violent activities than General Hospital.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes,
well,
violent
she also
theater.
watched that stuff too. She watched Young and the Restless.
Well, if you want something to share with your parents, what might be really interesting, and this is a good capper to get out of here, there's also a Vice show that is called Dark Side of the Ring, which specifically focuses on these behind-the-scenes sort of stories that happen with a lot of incidents. For instance, like Jimmy Snuka allegedly killing his girlfriend while out on the road, and tales of individuals like Brian Pillman and his life and the things that were happening behind the scenes there. So a lot of fascinating stuff. There's 3 seasons out already. All of it's fantastic. The first episode they did was a documentary about the killing of Bruiser Brody, which is a really interesting story, but he was stabbed to death in a locker room in Puerto Rico. So yeah, there is no end to just the debauchery, the depravity, and just the absolute human waste that exists in that industry, but also that manipulates the worst of our instincts. So fun stuff, interesting to watch, and I'm sure you'd probably enjoy it. So, and you can check that out as well. And speaking of enjoyment, if you've liked what we've done here, Michael's got instructions for you.
Smash that like button, ring the bell, hit subscribe, press the subscribe, click it, whatever. Also, engage, write a comment, write 10 comments, write the same thing 30 times, I will heart every single one of those as the podcast. If you do that, just write the same thing 30 times. Do it.
Sure. Okay. I won't, but enjoy.
No, you.
Or tell us your favorite, Jim Cornette promo, your favorite match. Are you a Midnight Express person? Or are you a Rock and Roll Express person? How about that? We'll get a little discussion there.
Well, I'm more of a Pineapple Express kind of person.
Of course you are. Yeah. And you wish you had Ox Baker's facial hair, so that says a lot about you as a human being. I killed 2 men with the hot punch. All right. Well, I think that is going to officially wrap this thing up like one of Ox Baker's former opponents. And for Disinformed After Dark this week, I am Ox Baker.
And I am a disappointment.
Be sure that you check in on new podcast episodes, of course, as well. Since we're saying we do things, we release it. Check us out, your preferred podcast provider, apps, wherever you want to. So, Disinformed After Dark this week. I'm Shane.
And I'm Michael. And zippity zoop, we're out of here.